This broadcast is live. You are with Clare, Teacher Clare UK. We are just getting set up in the studio and waiting for people to arrive today. So if you're here already, perhaps you could tell me your name and where you come from. Let's see who's live with me today. Do we have anybody on stream so far? Okay, can't see anybody yet. Perhaps that's because we go live in 2 minutes. Let's see. Is that right? We'll wait 3 minutes. Let's see who we've got here today. Any of the regulars here for the business classes? Let's see. Hi, everybody. Nearly there. We've got 1 minute and counting. 1 minute till lift off. Nice little phrasal verb to get you going for today. Oh, I'm going to take my glasses off, actually. Don't need them for the live stream. Right. Let's see who's here today. Hello, good afternoon. Buenos dias. Buenas tardes. Is it buenas tardes yet in Spain? I think it might be. So, good afternoon, everybody. You're here with Clare from London. Who do we have with us today? Perhaps you could comment in the box below your name, where you're watching from, maybe even what time it is. What time is it where you are? Just while we wait for people to join the stream today, let's get a bit of a warm up going. Let's see where you are. Where are you? Anybody with me today? Okay, so we're going to get started anyway. So, hello everybody. Buenas tardes. My name is Clare. I'm an English teacher from London. I live in London, right in the centre of London. And I know that everybody in the world is feeling the effects of the big C word at the moment. So many of you are at home. I'm not going to be talking about that too much today because I think it would be very nice to give it a bit of a rest. Let's give it a rest. But I do hope that everybody is safe and sound and that you are making the most of a bad situation, that you're all coping. Okay. It would be lovely to see some comments in the boxes below. We have Oscar. Let's pop Oscar up. It's me. It's Oscar from Cantabria, Spain. Cantabria. I'm not quite sure where the stress is on that city. Cantabria. Hello, Oscar. It's so lovely to see you again. You've been to, I think, all of my previous classes, haven't you? So that's great to have you back. So different type of class today, Oscar. Beware, be aware, be warned. And do you have a pen and paper with you? It'd be great if you could grab a piece of paper and a pen to jot down some ideas as I'm doing today's lesson. Who else do we have in the house? Anybody else? What's it like where you are? What's it like? What's the weather like? What's the weather like in Spain? What's the weather like in Japan? In London, it's the usual. It's extremely cold. It's a little bit windy. Um, but we're looking forward. We're looking forward. There's that phrase that we discussed in the last lesson. We are looking forward to some warmer weather this weekend. So hopefully we can be out in the sun a little bit. What's it like in Spain, Oscar? I bet it's a bit warmer than it is here, isn't it? It can't be difficult. Okay, so let's pop the present. Let's go to my lesson for today. Let's look at what I have for you today. Could the studio perhaps pop the presentation up? Oscar, the weather here is cloudy and 13 degrees. It's a bit warmer than England, but only 1 degree warmer, actually. Good morning, Javier. Javier Lopez Martin. Where are you watching from, Javier? Are you in Spain? Are you in Spain? Where are you? What's the weather like where you are, Javier? Okay. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's 13 degrees and cloudy. And yes, it is. I am in Spain. Okay, so let's go with the lesson for today. Let's get cracking, as we say, like cracking an egg. We have people in Almeria, Ziantina. Ziantina is in Almeria and it is cloudy. And Fermin is in Alicante and it's also cloudy. So it's cloudy across the whole of Europe. Let's hopefully it's going to get a bit warmer for the weekend. Well, we're now on Thursday, aren't we? Couple of days, nice warm weekend. That would be lovely. Okay, so as I've told you before, the people that have watched my lessons before, that have tuned in to my lessons before, I'm an English teacher from London. I teach on italki. I absolutely love teaching on italki. I specialize in advanced English, mostly adults. I do have a couple of younger people, and I do IELTS and business English with people, but I also do general English courses if you want to fix some of your problems that you might have not learned when you were a bit younger or so. You can look at what I offer on italki. Anyhow, so let's get on with our lesson for today. Today's lesson is presentations and public speaking. Presentations and public speaking. Let me warn you, this is not a vocabulary lesson, okay? So if you've got a pen and paper, I would like you to jot down some of the things that I speak with you today, that I teach you today. It's not necessarily going to be vocabulary per se, but you will hopefully learn some vocabulary along the way anyway. And if there's anything that you don't understand, just drop me a message and we'll try and flag it up on the screen and see if I can answer your questions. So if you do have any questions, just pop them in the comments boxes below, wherever you're watching, YouTube, italki, wherever you're watching. You can pop them in the box below. So, as I have said, this is not a vocabulary lesson per se. Trying to figure out how I change my slides now. Apologies about this. This is a less vocabulary lesson, okay? This is a less vocabulary lesson. I want you to not worry too much about vocabulary when you're thinking about doing presentations and public speaking. This is a lesson mainly about skills and strategies for public speaking. Now, tell me, let's put this up on the screen. I've put a comment in the box. Can you see the comment in the box, anybody? How would you feel? How would you feel? Try to picture this. How would you feel if you could stand up and deliver a speech without feeling nervous? What would that mean to you? Comment in the box if you like. Would you like to be able to stand up and speak in public? Would you like to be able to stand up and speak in public without feeling nervous? What would that mean for you? Let's first of all look at the type of presentations or public speaking that you've already done. Has anybody done any public speaking or presentations? What types of presentations do we know? There are many different types of speeches. There are many different ways to deliver speeches. There are many different situations in which we have to do public speaking or present. Any ideas? Because anybody had to do this before? Let's look at a couple that I've got for you. I've come up with a couple of ideas. So here's a few different types of speeches that we can give. In public, we might give speeches. Oops. Gone on to the wrong slide. Speeches, announcements, campaign meetings, union meetings. You might have to stand up and speak. Business meetings, you might have to give presentations, reporting facts and figures. You might have to do a pitch. You might have to pitch for your idea. You might have to do proposals. You might have to write a proposal and then deliver it verbally. And in university or college, you might have to present your findings. You might have to do a 15-minute speech on the things that you have been learning and studying in your studies. Again, you might need to speak at a union meeting, at a student union meeting, for example. Yes, there's a couple of comments here. Lucia has to speak. How do you feel when you have to speak, Lucia? Lucia, I think it's not Lucia, isn't it? Every day. Lucia has to speak every day, just to speak with all kinds of people. Do you like doing it? Do you like doing it in English? Do you normally speak in English? Or do you have to do that in Spanish? Fermin has to do presentation about things at work. Zare has to do things, has to do work presentations, yes. Javier, I'd like to feel confident and to be able to speak fluently. Yes. I think most people would like to be able to do that confidently. However, let's have a look at this. How many people in the world do you think have said feel nervous when speaking in public? How many people? I can tell you. 238 million people say that they feel nervous when they're speaking in public. So it's not just you. It's not just me. Many people. In fact, I think this number is too low, personally. I think many more people feel nervous when speaking in public. So you are not alone. Okay, you are not alone in feeling nervous. And so what this lesson is really about how can we overcome those nerves? How can we stop feeling nervous when we do public speaking? So I've got a couple of tips and strategies for you. This is what you're going to jot down on your piece of paper. Now, at the end of the lesson, I do have a little tiny bit of vocabulary for you, but in general, it's not a vocab lesson. On Tuesday, same time, same place next week, I will be doing a lesson on vocabulary and phrases for doing presentations. So you might want to tune in again on Tuesday, same time, same place. But today we're going to look at skills and strategies. So first of all, I want to look at this most wonderful, magnificent woman, Maya Angelou. Who's heard of Maya Angelou? What a wonderful woman she was. She did many speeches, in massive speeches in front of massive audience, thousands and thousands of people during the civil rights movement in America and more. And what she said is, I've learned that people will forget what you've said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. What do people think? What do you, viewers, think she means by this? What do you understand from this? What is she saying? Why does she say that people will forget what you said, or they might forget what you've said? They might forget what you've done or what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. You know, I guess what she's saying is what she's trying to do is to give everybody a confidence to speak. It's not always about what you say. People will remember some of the things you said, of course, which is why I've asked you to write things down today, because I'm hoping you won't forget what I've said today or what I've done. But I'm hoping you will also remember how I made you feel about giving presentations. Okay. So to start with, I just want to do a few quick 5 top tips for presentations and public speaking. I'm going to go over these again in a bit more detail in a moment, but just to get you started, let's look at some of these 5 top tips for public speaking. Number 1, be prepared. No one is born an expert speaker, okay? No one is born an expert speaker. Um, I've heard this so many times from people. They've looked at or they've heard politicians, famous people, Oscar winners, and that sort of thing get up and deliver a really outstanding speech. They weren't born this way. They were prepared. Let me come back to that in a moment. Number 2, stand up. Now, if I could stand up right now, I would do. Okay, but I'm not. I'm sitting down, breaking my own rule. I'm just doing this quickly. I'll come back to it in a moment. Number 3, use the vocab you know. We spoke about this in the last lesson, okay? Unless you have months, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit here. Unless you have some time to learn your new vocabulary, it's always best to use the vocabulary that you know already, the vocab, okay? Speak up, but not fast. About 100 words a minute is what you're looking for, what you're aiming for. And finally, last but not least, practice, practice, practice. This is what makes the people in number 1, the experts. This is what makes them experts. Practicing. You can either practice with a friend or with a teacher. Okay. So, in order to be prepared for your speeches, whatever they are, I've come up with the 3 P's. Okay. You need to plan. Number 1. You need to do a P exercise, number 2, and you need to predict. And you need to P, and you need to predict. If anybody knows what any of these things mean or wants to know what any of these things mean, obviously you can write me a comment in the comments box, but I'm going to go into more detail now. So, number 1, the first P. Plan the presentation logically. Now, before you do any planning, one tip that I would give you, maybe you want to write this down, is ask a friend or a teacher if you can discuss your presentation with them, okay? So don't plan anything, don't write anything down before you speak to them. Just say to your friend, would you mind sitting down with me and giving me some feedback, perhaps, on my presentation? And then explain to them what your speech is about in vocab that they know, and ask them to take a note of the main points. The main points. Don't give them the speech. Don't give them the whole presentation at this moment. Just ask them to take down the main points for you. This really helps you focus your mind on what the main message is and what your main points are. Okay? Ask your friend to do that for you. Now, the way that you might plan your presentation is to do this very simple structure. You can also use this structure for your essays at university, academic essays. Introduction. In your introduction to your speech, to your presentation, you're going to tell your speakers, your audience, what you are going to say. You're going to say what you are going to say. That's the introduction. Then you're going to break it down and you're going to say it. The middle part is you're going to say what you said you were going to say. And then the conclusion is the same thing, but summarized and paraphrased in a different way. You're going to say what you said. Okay, so quite simple. Say what you're going to say it, and say what you said. That's the first thing. The next thing. P. You might need to do this exercise, P. There are many different ways that you can deliver your speech. There are many different structures, but this is a good simple one that you can use if necessary. Okay, so what you do is you make your point, P for point, then you give an example of your point, and then you explain your point. Provide evidence, if you like, if it's appropriate. It's not always appropriate. Okay, and then you're going to do this 3 times. So when you're given a speech, it's always good idea to have 3 main points. Why do you think this is? Let's see if anybody knows. Why is it a good idea to only do 3 main points? What's P? Says Zare. Well, hopefully I've answered your question now. Here's P. Point, example, and explanation. And to do this 3 times. Does anybody know why you should do this 3 times? Pat, how could I join free lessons? This is a free lesson. You are in a free lesson right now. Hi, Pat. Welcome to our free lesson on italki. Hope you're enjoying it. Yes. Why do we only do 3 points in a presentation? Who knows this? Because it's more simple, Zare says. Yes, it is more simple. Excellent. Thank you, Zare. It's more simple. It's simpler. Also, it's a way of, again, making you focus. Also, it's a way of helping your audience remember what you said. Do you remember the quote from Maya Angelou when she said, people might not remember what you said. People might forget what you said. If you make too many points, they might not remember them. So just make 3 points if you can. It's not always applicable, but if you can. Also, another good reason is because at the end of your presentation, you often have 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour for questions and contributions. And if you're feeling nervous when you're doing your presentation, by the time you've got to your to your questions and answers, you will feel less nervous. Okay, so first of all, leaving some topics for people to ask questions about is a great idea. Anyway, gives them some interaction, gives them some engagement in your presentation. It also means you'll be able to answer them much. You'll feel much more confident by the time you get to the questions and answers. So leave a couple of points for the question and answers. Next one. Final one, the final P. You're going to predict, okay? You're going to predict the sorts of things that you might have to think about on the day. You might have to think about the questions that people might ask you. It's a good idea to predict those questions in advance and prepare some answers. Don't memorize them word for word, but just activate the vocabulary in your head prior to your presentation so that when it comes to the questions and answers, you kind of have a rough idea of what you might say. Prepare the answers. And also predict any potential problems that you might have. What sort of problems might you have on the day? Anybody ever had these problems when they're giving a public speech? Any other types of problems? Excuse me, like me right now, got a dry throat. Okay, so I've come prepared with my glass of orange juice, which coordinates very nicely with my branding, doesn't it? I've just noticed. Make sure you always have a bottle of water. Always have a bottle of water. Make sure you check things like your technical problems, your technical issues with your computers, any PowerPoint presentations, anything like this. You want to predict any problems in advance and make sure that you've got a backup plan. Zare, technology problems. Exactly. We've all done that. We've got there and we've realized the USB isn't working, or that we've got the wrong type of plug or the wrong cable. So try to think of all these things in advance. Perhaps you might want to print off your PowerPoint presentation on paper for people in case you do have a technology fail, an altogether technology fail. You then at least have your presentation on paper for them. So prepare all of these sorts of things. And if you do these 3 Ps, if you plan, predict, prepare, you will feel less nervous. You'll feel much more prepared for your presentation and therefore less nervous. Okay, so there they are in summary. That's the 3 Ps: plan, P, and predict. Let's move on. Now, my tip number 2, stand up. I know you don't want to stand up, but honestly, it's one of the single most things that can make you feel less nervous and make you present and help you present better. Your diaphragm. Your diaphragm has room to move. Your arms will be freer to move around like this. You will be a little bit above your audience, so you will be able to see their lovely faces engaging in your presentation. You will feel more confident. You absolutely will. Now, you might not know in advance whether you can stand up for your presentation. Sometimes, very occasionally, you might get somewhere and they've put all the chairs out around the table or whatever, and you might have to sit down. You might think that you have to sit down, but I would advise always prepare to stand up. And when you arrive at your venue, see if you can find a way of ensuring that you stand up. All of the top communicators in the world, all of the people that look like they're confident, they stand up when they speak. Okay, so please try to stand up for your speech. Now, vocabulary. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, even though I'm going to give you some actual vocabulary in the next lesson on Tuesday. Today's takeaway message is to use vocabulary that you know. Okay. Why do I always say to use vocabulary that you know? Need anyone comment in the box below? Why should you use vocabulary that you know? Let's look at this word here. Splendiferous. Oops, I've gone back a page. Let me go back. Splendiferous. It's not a normal word. It's not a word we use a lot. We wouldn't use it in our natural speech, but it is a word. And if you, when you're planning your speech, if you look for synonyms of the word that you want to use, and come up with a word like this, there's a couple of reasons why this is a bad idea. One, you might feel nervous trying to use it. So your nerves are going to increase again. Okay. You will feel much more confident using the words that you already know. You will feel much more confident using the words that you already know. You might choose a synonym and then ended up using it incorrectly anyway. So I wouldn't advise cramming in lots of new vocabulary the day before your speech or your presentation. Use the words that you know. Feel comfortable with the words that you know. This will help with your nerves. Okay. There are other reasons why you should use the vocabulary that you know already. Many people won't know the word that you're using if you try to use a more difficult word. Many people won't know the word that you're trying to use. Have a think about your audience. Have a think about your audience, okay? How many participants in your audience will be non-native English speakers? How many participants will be non-native English speakers? Okay, I asked this question in my last class. Let's see if anybody can remember the answer. How many people who speak English are non-native speakers? How many? What percentage? What percentage of people who speak English are non-native speakers? Can anybody remember? Oscar? Javier? Anybody remember what the percentage of non-native English speakers is? Ava, most of them. Yes, it is. It's definitely most of them. Zara, sorry. It's a lot, yes. Most people who speak English are non-native speakers. Zare, 80%. Higher, higher. We have a quiz show on TV in England called Higher or Lower. Was it called Higher or Lower? That's what they do anyway. Bit more than 80%. It's actually 94%. 94% of English speakers are 94% of English speakers are non-native, okay? Non-native English speakers is 94%. It's about 94%. So most people watching you giving your presentation will not care that you make mistakes. They will not possibly won't even know that you've made a mistake. So again, try to use vocabulary that you already feel comfortable using. And this is a tip that I give people, whether it's speaking or writing, again, for a number of different reasons. Never use a complicated word when a simple word will do. Never use a complicated word when a simple one will do. You don't want to alienate your audience. You don't want them to be bored. You don't want them to be distracted by a complicated word that you're using. You don't want them to glaze over. That's an expression. Did your audience glaze over? Don't make your audience glaze over. Who knows what glaze over means? To glaze over. Ava got 90%. Yes, that's very close. 90% is very close. And Javier said, because you can forget words that you've memorized recently. Yes, you can. And it's easier to talk with words you already know. Yes. Never use a complicated word when a simple one will do. Okay. So I said it wasn't going to be a vocabulary lesson, but I do have a couple of things here for you to help you plan your presentation. So things like linking words. What do linking words do? What do linking words do? Let's put that on the screen, shall we? What do linking words do? Can the studio pop that on the screen? What do linking words do? Studio? Okay, it doesn't matter. It's there in the comments if anybody wants to look at that question. What do linking words do? Anybody know? Furman's asked if it was glaze over. Close, actually, glaze. Glaze with a Z or a Z, as we say in English, glaze over. Oh, so boring. What's the meaning? What's the meaning of glaze over? Okay, so if you glaze over, if someone's eyes glaze over, it means that the kind of they get a film across their eyes and they can no longer listen to you. They can no longer watch you giving your presentation because their eyes are covered in a glaze like you find on the outside of a cup. You know, we put a glaze on the outside of a cup. That's glaze. Okay, Zare. Linking words are used to pass different points. Okay, that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, it's to go from one point to another. They link together like this, like links in a chain. Furman's got it. You got it, Furman. You got it. Glaze, Glaze, glaze over. So linking words here. Look, they link. Is my pointer working? I don't know if my pointer's working today. Oops, let's go back. So linking words such as, and if you were taking notes of my presentation today, you may have picked up on a couple of these things that I said at the beginning of my speech. So I said, to start with, I'm going to do this. Secondly, this is what I'm going to do. In order to be prepared for your presentation, the next step is to plan your presentation. This is an example. This is how you can use this. My final point, and to conclude, is to help the reader or the audience member. It's to help guide them through your speech. Again, bearing in mind that how many people are going to be non-native speakers, so you want to help where you are with your speech. My final point, and then you're going to conclude with a summary of paraphrasing the rest of your speech. You're going to say what you said. Here's a couple of phrases for you here, okay? At the beginning of your speech, I mean, you can do this in lots of different ways, okay? You can start with a question. This is what I did at the beginning of my speech today. I said to you, how would you feel if you could get up and give a presentation without feeling nervous? Starting a presentation with a question is always a good idea as well, or an article for that matter. Excuse me. Starting with the question is a good idea. It gets the audience thinking. It engages them in your topic. Excuse me. So today I'm going to talk about, my topic today is, and then at the end you might say something like, I'm happy to answer questions or queries. Please feel free to ask me some questions, to ask any questions. Okay. Point number 4, speak up, but not fast. This is a very common problem when you're giving public speeches and presentations. We get nervous. Our nerves get the better of us, we say. Our nerves get the better of us. That's a really good expression, actually. Maybe write that one down for your um, own personal use. My nerves got the better of me. I spoke so fast. I'm really sorry I spoke so fast. My nerves got the better of me. So, when you're nervous, you tend to speak at about 180 to 200 words a minute, and you talk like this, and nobody can really keep up, and you can't even keep up with yourself. You can't keep up with yourself. Your mind can't keep up with your mouth. So, you're going to make more mistakes when you feel nervous. So, slow down, speak slowly. Speaking slowly, if you listen to any politician, any famous person that's giving a speech at the Oscars, they will speak at about this rate. This is to help them. This is a method to help them, help their brain catch up with their mouth. So their brain has time to think about the right words to use and to form the words correctly. Now, one of the problems that we have when we're going to do a speech is not knowing what the audience is going to look like. Okay, so this is a tip that I got from an actor. She's a quite a brilliant actor in London, and she said what she always does, and this is a tip that they give actors at acting school. So top tip from acting school is to close your eyes and to visualize the room ahead of you, to visualize the space. How big is it? Will you be in a small meeting room? Will you be standing on a football pitch? Will you be in a conference hall? How big is it? How far do you have to project your voice? Then you can prepare when you're practicing, you can prepare and practice the volume at which you have to speak. Do I need to really project like this? Do I need a microphone? Are there going to be any technical problems with the microphones? Do I have to speak a bit quieter because I'm in a very small room with only 5 people? So think about those in advance. Think about the size of the room that you're going to be speaking in, the type of the room that you're going to be speaking in. Is it an old room? Is it going to have lots of modern technology? All of these things that you can prepare in advance of your speech will help calm the nerves, will help you feel much better, much more prepared on the day of your speech. I said you might have to give a speech on a football pitch. Has anybody ever had to give a speech on a football pitch? I'm not sure if I just made that one up totally. Um, I've seen people speaking in similar sorts of things. I suppose people do speak at Wembley and other football stadiums. Have any of you ever had to speak in a venue that's absolutely massive? Has anybody else had to speak in a really, really big room and not known what to do? No, well, okay, well, try to find out. Ask the event organizers, ask the people who have invited you. It's fine. Drop them an email, give them a phone call, phone them up and say, could you give me some information on the venue? What type of facilities will be available? What type of technology will be at my disposal? That's a good expression. Will I need to bring anything with me? Will I have microphones? I think I said that one already. So try to aim for 100 words per minute. So when you're planning your speech at the beginning of my speech today, or my presentation, my lesson, I was saying for you to say what you're going to say it, and then say what you said. Then you're going to break it down into point, example, explanation. try to give each one of those a bit of timing. So if you've got a 10-minute speech, you might do 2 minutes for introduction, 3 minutes for the first point, 3 minutes for the second point, 6, 8, and then maybe 2 for each point, maybe. That's a good point. 2 for introduction, 2 for the first point, second point, third point, and conclusion. So 2 minutes for each one. But time it, write it on your piece of paper. How long have I got for each section? And then if you've got 2 minutes, you need to prepare 200 words. It's quite simple. So for a speech of 10 minutes, you need to prepare 1,000 words, basically 100 words a minute, and then make sure when you deliver your speech to constantly remember to slow down. Slow down. Okay, now a few related tips for speaking in public here. In order to help you speak more confidently, you need to do other things as well, leading up to your speech. But just in general, I mean, this is excellent advice for English learning or language learning. Anyway, the first one, speak. Okay, you just have to speak. Speak whenever you can. Speak to whoever you can. There's lots of little tips and tricks that we English teachers give our students to kind of help them with their speaking. But just do a search on the internet and look for speaking tips. Who can I speak to? Practice. Get your mouth trained in speaking in English. Speak whenever you can. Listen. You need to listen to how other people speak. Listen, the TED Talks are a perfect example of this. And on TED Talks, they often do that thing where they ask a question at the beginning. You've probably all seen one. And a very confident speaker gets up and delivers a speech with almost no notes by the looks of things sometimes. They're not just experts at this. They're not naturals. I mean, they're not born this way. They have practiced and practiced and practiced. So listen to them, listen to people on TED Talks, listen to podcasts, listen to videos on YouTube. A quick tip when watching videos on YouTube, if you have the subtitles on, you are doing reading practice. That's fine. It's fine to do reading practice as well. But if you're doing listening practice, if you're specifically doing listening practice, turn the subtitles off and listen. You could even do it both ways. You could listen and watch the video 4 times, one with the subtitles on, one with the subtitles off, on, off. And then read, obviously. Read. Read every day. You need to be reading every day. Articles on sites, books, pamphlets, anything that your teachers have given you, your lessons. Read them out loud. Read them to the dog. Read them to the kids. Read them to your flatmates or read them to yourself. But read silently for about half an hour a day and read out loud. Read the words that you can say, that you can see, to train your mouth so your mouth knows how the words form in your mouth, and your ear will be able to hear. Your ear will be able to hear what you are saying, and do this every day. Okay. Now, my final point, practice. Practice, practice, practice. I've said this before. Those famous people, those politicians, those Oscar-winning actors in Hollywood, they are not born expert speakers. Somebody usually writes their speech for them, actually. They have the speech written for them, and then they practice and practice and practice. Now, you can do this on your own, actually. So you can, on your iPhone or your other method of recording yourself, just hold it up or put it by the mirror in the bathroom or wherever, and just speak, present, do your speech, practice your speech, video yourself, look at yourself, listen to yourself. How does my body language How is my body language? What do I look like? Do I keep doing something strange? Do I keep scratching my face? Do I keep flapping my arms around? Video yourself and practice. Even better, you can ask a friend if you can practice to them. Or even better, or another option is to ask your teacher if you can do presentation practice with them. I often do this with my students who are doing presentations. So we'll do all of this whole exercise together, the planning and the predicting and so on, and then they will deliver their speech to me, and I will give them immediate feedback on pronunciation, different ways that things can be said, and just generally get some practice actually using the vocabulary and so on that that they're going to be using. Do we have any questions so far? It's gone a little bit quiet on the comment front. I know I've been talking a lot. I'm really sorry. Do we have any questions so far before I go on to my final points? Let's look at the comments box. Juan and Lucia spoke about connections with one ideas to another. That's linking words in it. What about any questions on these final few points that I've made? Fermin, Zare, any questions about what I've been saying before? Any more tips? Do you want any more tips? Okay. So here's a couple of final things to conclude your speech, okay? A few final things. You obviously need to thank everybody that has attended your speech. You need to thank everybody that's come to your presentation. Actually, I've done those the wrong. Have I done those the wrong way around? No, I've done it the right way around. So you need to thank everybody. Here's a couple of ways of doing it. I'd like to thank everybody for attending my presentation today. It's really been an honor to be able to present my knowledge, my information, my findings to such a lovely audience. I really appreciate you coming from right across the country. It can't be easy in these times, in this weather. I hope you had a safe journey getting here. Lots of different things that you can say to your audience. Zare said it's all clear. All clear. So far, so good. What about requests, actually? Has anybody got any requests for pronunciation today or for vocabulary and phrases for the next lesson? Does anybody have any questions or of pronunciation or phrases for the next lesson? No, it's okay. Lucia says, okay, thank you. Any questions? Let me just put this up on the screen. Any questions? Let's put any requests, actually. Any requests? This lesson or the next? Any pronunciation requests? Okay. I'll just leave that there for now. Let's see if we can pop that on the screen, studio, if we can. So we've said thanks to our guests. Thank you. For really like to thank everybody for coming to my presentation today. It's been a real honor to be able to share my thoughts with you. That's a nice one. It's been a real honor to be able to share my thoughts with you. And then you open up. This is the phrase that we use. We're going to open up for questions and contributions. So how you say that is, I'd now like to open up for questions and contributions. Why don't you repeat that? Anybody that's at home at the moment, Zare, Fermin, Oscar, anybody that's at home at the moment and would like to saying this, you can do. I'd now like to open up the floor for questions and contributions. I'd now like to open up the floor for questions and contributions. I'd now like to open up the floor for questions and contributions. Then, when you do get to the questions and contributions section, remain standing if you can. If you can't, then sit down. Your host will indicate to you, your host will let you know what you should be doing, whether you should sit back down. Perhaps you're on a panel with 3 or 4 other people, and then it would say obviously be a bit strange to keep standing up, to stay standing up. So if everybody else has sat down, then you go and sit down with them. If it's you that's choosing who asks a question, because sometimes you have somebody that's chairing the meeting or hosting the meeting or comparing the event. You often have a compare or a chair, somebody who's chairing the meeting. They will often choose who is going to ask a question. They'll say, the woman over there with the red jersey, or the gentleman with the suit on the left. They will often do that. But if it's you, if you get the opportunity to be able to ask, to select who's going to ask the questions, make sure you choose a wide range of speakers. Make sure you get a real diversity of speakers, of people asking questions. There's all sorts of different ways we can do this. You can encourage people. Don't be shy. No question is too small. All questions are valid questions. And sometimes you might not even get people putting their hands up to ask you questions. So again, you want to encourage them to ask questions. No question is too small. If you're thinking it, I can guarantee that somebody else in the room is thinking it too. So no question is too small. Okay. So encourage those that are less confident, perhaps. And you can sometimes see it. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it in their face. You can see it in their body language. If you see somebody sitting a little bit like this, that they're about to put their hand up, encourage them. Would you like to ask a question? Did you have a question to ask? Okay. So that's most of my tips for now for this lesson. Like I said at the beginning, this is not necessarily a vocabulary lesson. This was to teach you how to do presentations and public speaking using less vocabulary, not more. Okay. However, we will be in the next lesson looking at very specific questions and phrases and vocabulary. Not necessarily much higher level, actually, but just specific phrases and techniques that you can use when speaking. Let's go to the Maya Angelou. Where's she gone? Yeah. Let's shadow this. I'll model it and then you can shadow it with me, okay? Just such a wonderful quote. Just such an inspirational woman. Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said. I've learned that people will forget what you've said. I've learned that people will forget what you've said. People will forget what you did. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. People will never forget how you made them feel. What a wonderful woman. So, how do people feel at the end of this lesson on presentations and public speaking? Oscar, Zare have all said these are useful tips so far, and more tips would be useful. Okay, come up with more tips, phrases, and so on. How do you feel at the end of this lesson? Do you think you're going to be able to use any of these tips in your future presentations, your future public speaking engagements, we call them? Will you be able to use any of these tips? How do you feel? Hopefully, I've been able to inspire you to feel a little less nervous next time you have to do a public speech or a presentation. Hopefully, you're going to be able to use some of these tips. Um, Uh, yes, well, I'd like to say thanks, actually. I've really enjoyed doing this lesson with you. If you would like to attend my next lesson, it's going to be next Tuesday, same time, same place. And I also welcome your questions and contributions to all of my lessons. You know I do. I love it love it when I get your feedback. Zare, feels great. Excellent. Thank you, Zoe. That makes me feel really good that you've really enjoyed this lesson. Okay. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you all again next Tuesday. See you on Tuesday. Take care. 2 meters away. Remember, stay 2 meters away from everybody. Take care. Thanks for joining.